Do you believe in gaslighting people?
No, absolutely not. I think it's so stupid. I don't
Ah!
understand. I think that gaslighting is so, I think it's stupid. And I'll tell you why I think it's stupid. You're supposed to get gaslit, right? Because I think the life is saying, do you trust yourself? Right? Like you're not going to change what I said to where I become the victim. I think the gaslighting is stupid. It makes no sense to me. Will people make you feel rejected, misunderstood? But all of those things are gifts.
What you're giving people is mental toughness in a world that they need because the world is not going to be kind to them.
A lot of the things that they said in this interview, in my opinion, were dangerous because it sounds like they're speaking to the average person and how the average person, per se, on social media may misuse terminology. And I think what we have to get to the bottom of is that 15 years ago, when I started my healing journey, if I said I was depressed, people would tell me that I was a demon and I was going to hell. Okay? So 15 years ago, we didn't have a lot of these terms. A lot of people didn't even have the ability to talk about healing. Like healing was not a conversation. Emotional well-being was not a conversation. Mental health, mental illness was not a conversation. Society, particularly the US government, deemed mental illness to be such a threat on society that if you acknowledge that you were depressed or you were bipolar or you had something going on mentally, you would lose your job. And so the way that they made sure no one acknowledged their mental health was by making sure that they would lose their job, they would lose their income, they would lose the ability to take care of their family. So a lot of people never even acknowledged what was going on with them emotionally out of fear. And then also because they just didn't have the terminology. And so when I first started my healing journey 15 plus years ago, I didn't have the terminology. When I was going through my depression, no one knew to send me to therapy. So for this generation to now have all of the terminology, as annoying as it is because it's being used improperly, it's still a beautiful thing that the terminology is present. At least the conversations are happening. And more so of what their interview was about was them being annoyed and bothered at the fact that people are misusing terminology that that they know nothing about. That people are misusing terminology that they haven't researched, and that people are misusing terminology and self-diagnosing themselves and people that they are in relationships with. I totally understand that because it is annoying, okay? And with that, it doesn't mean that when people are using these terms that they're 100% wrong and that they aren't 100% valid. There are scenarios where this terminology still holds weight, even if a person is misusing it and using it the wrong way. So to say that gaslighting is normal, the intention to gaslight anybody is manipulation. And so, yes, manipulation happens on a daily basis, but to have the framework that gaslighting is normal is very dangerous to me. And so, I believe what their intention to do was in their video and in their interview was to separate the average person that misuses it, but they didn't put enough emphasis on the person that is actually being abused, the person that is actually being manipulated, the person that is being gaslit into believing that their mental health, their reality is non-existent. There has to be a distinction. And this is where it matters what you say and how you say it, because people are listening and people are downloading everything that a person says. And to simply say you should have the mental strength to believe it or not. You should have the mental strength to stand up for yourself. You should have the mental strength to know what to believe. You should have the mental strength to be able to say, no, I see things differently. When we're talking about emotional healing and people who have been traumatized, we're speaking about people who are not there yet. We're speaking about people who have not acquired the tools to have the full capacity of mental strength to be able to stand up for themselves and acknowledge what their reality is. To some degree, they're still looking for someone to help them shape that reality. And then they get into a relationship with a person who is openly manipulating them, gaslighting them. And gaslighting is emotional abuse. It's when a person chooses to ignore your reality, distort your reality, and lie about what actually happened so they don't have to take accountability for what they actually did. And when a person does that over and over and over again, it breaks the person. It breaks the person that they're manipulating. It confuses them on their confidence. It confuses them on who they are. It confuses them about their actual reality. And we have to remember that gaslighting isn't just something that happens to adults. It typically starts as a child. When you are young and your parents tell you things like kids are to be seen and not heard. So now when your parents are speaking to you in a harmful way, they're speaking to you in an abusive way, you can't say certain words, you can't stand up for yourself, you can't ask questions. Your parents have the ability to shape and mold your reality and tell you certain things happen that you know didn't happen. To force you believe that there's something wrong with you, to force you believe that you have all of these mental illnesses. I know a lot of people that are my clients that grew up really believing something was wrong with them because their parents always told them they weren't smart, always told them that they had something going on or they had problems. That is the epitome of gaslighting, of dictating what a person's reality is when you know that they don't have the full capacity to own their reality themselves. And if this is a behavior that starts in childhood, it's not odd that a person would get older and not know how to stand firm in the reality of who they are. Another thing that a gaslighter will do is play the victim and the villain at the same time. So when you know a person that has hurt you, intentionally or unconsciously, they will refuse to acknowledge that they hurt you. They will refuse to take accountability. And when they refuse to do that, they will also ignore all of your points and then place the blame back on you and make you feel as if you did something wrong to them. In what world is that normal behavior? And when you say gaslighting is normal, in what world is this normal behavior supposed to be accepted? In what world do we have to, or should we, stay in relationship with a person that is intentionally going out of their way to manipulate me out of knowing the truth of my reality just so I can build mental toughness? A lot of the rhetoric in their conversation was if you create boundaries, because the therapist also said that she hates boundaries. She hates the idea of boundaries. She hates that people says boundaries are for me and not for you. So if we don't create boundaries, and if the intention is to stay in a relationship to create mental toughness, why do I have to stay in an environment that's not conducive to my healing? Why is it necessary for me to stay in an environment that's not conducive to me evolving? Why would I stay in an environment that with a person who is openly going out of their way to manipulate me out of trusting my own reality? The idea that everyone has enough mental toughness and has evolved out of their victimhood, that has enough strength to acknowledge all of their wounds, all of their traumas, and say, no, I'm gonna pull myself up by my bootstraps and nobody's gonna be able to manipulate me. It's just not realistic. And in my opinion, it's not the healthiest way of going about therapy. When you go into therapy, you have to meet people where they are. And the aspect of meeting people where they are is assessing where is their mental health? Where is their mental strength? Do they even have a relationship with their intuition? Because the only way to evolve out of being in a gaslighting relationship or situation is to have the ability to embody your own reality, to trust your own reality, to trust your instincts. One of the things that a lot of therapists say that you can tell a person is, I see things differently, or I remember things differently. Do you know how much power a person has to have within their being just to say those words? Most people can't even tell another person that they hurt their feelings. Most people can't even tell another person that they don't like the food that you cooked. Most people are people pleasers. Most people are codependent. And most people do perform to receive love. It doesn't mean that those things are right. It doesn't mean that those things are okay. And it doesn't mean those things are healthy. But this is where the average person is that is in a relationship that is allowing themselves to be emotionally manipulated and gaslit. Another thing that happens is gaslighters play on the wounds of people who aren't fully evolved, the people who are codependent, the people who are manipulators. Because what'll happen is a gaslighter will hurt you and they'll be like, I never said that. I never did that. I never said that to you. I never hurt you in that way. You hurt me. Like, look at how you're bringing this up to me. You're hurting my feelings. And the person that is being gaslit and manipulated will say, no, you did this to me. You said this. I have screenshots. I can prove to you when you said this. These are the exact words that you said. And what's happening when that person is trying to get the gaslighter to change their mind? They're seeking validation from the person that is intentionally gaslighting them. They're wanting that person to change their mind and say, I did do that to you. I'm sorry. But the gaslighter is never going to say that. The gaslighter is going to recognize the, I don't want to use the terminology weakness, the void, the wound. The gaslighter is going to recognize the wound and the void, the part of you that needs them to say, I'm sorry. They're going to recognize the part of you that needs to say, I take accountability. The part of you that needs to hear them say, I'll never do that again. A gaslighter is never going to do that. They're never going to give you what you need. In no world is this normal behavior. This is very consciously and unconscious manipulative behavior that intentionally distorts another person's reality so the gaslighter does not have to take accountability. And over time, it breaks a person. It makes them forget who they are. It makes them forget what their purpose is. It makes them forget everything about their confidence. And that is the intention of the gaslighter. It was odd to me to hear the therapist say that gaslighting is normal and that she thinks gaslighting is stupid because it's textbook emotional and psychological manipulation. And so I think when we say something is normal to people who are still healing from this type of abuse, gaslighting is abuse on any level. Even if I give you the silent treatment, that's seen as emotional abuse because that silent treatment, what a person feels when you abandon them emotionally, psychologically, and energetically, the brain interprets it as physical pain in the body. So in the interview, when they are basically putting levels on what your trauma is versus what my trauma is, your trauma is only if something big happened to you. And if something very small and minuscule happened to you, you don't deserve to be able to say that you've been gaslit. You don't deserve to be able to say that you experienced trauma. I just don't agree with that, because anything that the brain cannot fully process or comprehend can be considered as traumatizing to the body, period. And nobody is allowed to dictate or put a hierarchy or a scale on what is traumatic and what isn't, because it's subjective to the person. And so when it comes to the aspect of gaslighting, we have to first acknowledge that it is not normal behavior to do that. It is not normal behavior to look somebody dead in the eye and say, I never said that, knowing damn well 3 minutes ago, you just said that. And then what happens when the person's like, I never said that? And say you are a person that is emotionally in a fragile state. At some point over time, you'll start to think that you're crazy. That is the intention of the gaslighter. The intention of the gaslighter is to make you feel like you're crazy. It's to belittle your perspective, to belittle your emotions, to diminish who you are as a person, to play the victim and the villain at the same time. That's what Beyonce sang in the song, right? And so people who are healing and doing their best to reclaim their power are susceptible to people who are gaslighters because they haven't fully embodied their power just yet. That's not a weak person. That's not a person who isn't mentally tough. That's not a person who is like TikTok fragile, as a lot of people put it. It's a person who's still learning who they are. And if we're going to hold conversations about emotional well-being, healing, growing, and evolving, then we also have to hold space for the people who aren't there yet. And we also have to use the language and the terminology for people who are still learning how to embody their power. We have to remember that the healing process is a lifelong process. We'll be doing this for lifetimes to come. Anything not growing is dead. And so it's never conducive to a healing conversation to say that if you don't have the mental toughness to say, no, that's not how it happened. This is how it happened. I'm going to stand firm on what I remember you said. If a person don't have the mental toughness to do that, it doesn't mean that they're weak. It means that they're still learning how to stand up for themselves. They're still learning how to honor themselves. They're still learning how to honor their throat chakra. Before the fear of death, the number one fear is public speaking, which means that the number one fear is people using their words, speaking up for themselves, honoring themselves, standing up for themselves, standing up for what they need. That is not easy by any means. And so to go on a podcast like High Level Conversation with 19 Keys and the Therapist, and to speak about it like it's so easy, completely discounts what people who have experienced real trauma have to go through just to say no, let alone say no with the sentence that follows. The average person cannot say no. And it's just one word. It's not even a full sentence. Most people have dishonored themselves and feel the guilt and the shame and the embarrassment of dishonoring themselves for all the times that they said no, all the times that they said yes, but they really wanted to say no. All the times they had sex, they said yes, they really wanted to say no. All the times they did performative acts, saying yes when they really wanted to say no. All the times they helped people, performed, codependent people pleasers saying yes when they really wanted to say no. And then to also tell them, if a person's gaslighting you, this is normal, this happens every day, this is regular life. You should have the mental toughness to be able to stand up for yourself and tell them that's not how I remember it happening. People haven't even figured out how to say no yet. And so as a therapist, the intention is to build up their confidence in reclaiming that power, to own their reality, and be able to speak up for themselves and use their words without the fear or without flinching when they know a person is going to challenge the truth of their reality and go out of their way to try to distort it. When I commented under 19 Keys' post, the intention is not to debate, because I don't debate. Okay, I was on the debate team in high school. It was fun then, but I don't debate now because I honor your perspective and I honor your opinion and your judgment. And I think there's a place for it, and I think it works for certain people. And the intention is to remind him and everybody else there's healthy ways to have these conversations. And the way I feel, my opinion, the conversation was had is that the therapists in 19 Keys were mentally tough. And anybody that didn't think or operate or maneuver or pivot or heal, grow, or evolve the way that they have the capacity to do is low functioning. And that's really dismissive to the people who are doing their best. The average person doesn't trust their reality. They can't even remember where they put their damn keys. They can't make a final decision on what's best for them. They call their mama, their daddy, their friends, trying to get help and advice on one decision. I have clients that are like, can I come next week? Can I come next week? And I'm like, no. I will only allow my clients to book with me one time a month. Because one, I'm not here to steal your money. And then two, I need you to start trusting your own guidance. I need you to start trusting your own advice. That is something that's difficult for a person because growing up, all of those options were taken from us. Society kind of takes the options from us to believe in ourselves, to believe in our decision making. So the average person doesn't know, should I get in a relationship? Should I wait? Should I leave the relationship? Should I stay? Should I buy the house? Should I go back to school? Should I save more money? Should I invest in Bitcoin? They have so much resistance to making their own decision making. They don't trust their reality. They don't trust their decision making. They don't trust themselves. And we don't demean, diminish, disregard, or dismiss people because we have it all figured out. We have to really meet them where they were. And in the podcast, the therapist said that she has the capacity to meet people where they are. Well, then if that's the case, then you wouldn't use the terminology that gaslighting is normal. Because there's some people that's really been gaslit, that have been in abusive situations and believe that the abuse is now their fault because that's what the gaslighter said. They believe that being molested was their fault because that's what the gaslighter said. They believe being raped was their fault because that's what the gaslighter said. They believe being punched in the mouth by their parents was their fault because they should have stopped talking. That's what the gaslighter said. In what world is that behavior ever going to be normal? Yes, it happens on a daily basis. And yes, it's something that we're going to have to learn how to maneuver and work through on a daily basis because the behavior has been a part of people's regular daily lives and daily behaviors. But that don't mean that shit is normal. And it doesn't mean that the average person knows how to maneuver in a conversation with the manipulator. I think it's very odd to call a person fragile-minded because they don't know how to maneuver conversations with people who are intentionally manipulative. If I'm good-spirited, if I'm honest, and I take accountability, I'm fragile-minded because I don't have the tools and the strength and the desire to entertain a conversation with a person who is intentionally trying to manipulate me for their own self-aggrandizement. Come on now. And just because it's normalized don't mean it's normal. Just because it's normalized don't mean it's okay. Just because it's normalized and it's a part of the average person's behavior does not mean that we use the rhetoric that it's normal. It's not normal. It's manipulation and it's abuse. And there are people who have been severely abused by gaslighters. So to say that gaslighting is stupid, you don't understand it, you hate when people use the terminology, I would much rather you hop on a podcast of the magnitude of 19 keys and speak about how to heal from being gaslit by an abuser, as opposed to speaking to the people that you don't even respect that's using the term the wrong way on TikTok. If you don't respect the people who are romanticizing the terminology, disrespecting the terminology, and using the terminology the wrong way on TikTok and Instagram and social media, why give them more time? Why give them more energy? Why spend 2 hours speaking to the people that you kind of think are stupid? People that don't even know what they're talking about. Why spend 2 hours debunking what TikTok people say about gaslighting, as opposed to using the platform, in my opinion, the proper way and talking to the people that have been gaslit? And instead of telling the people who have been gaslit, because they're the ones that's watching the conversation, not the people on TikTok. The people on TikTok don't care to learn or research. The people on TikTok, and I'm not speaking against people on TikTok, but the people who are frivolously using the terminology and making it bottomless. They aren't coming on the 19 Keys podcast to listen to a therapist tell you exactly what gaslighting is. They're not looking for more information. They're using the terminology however they want. We all know this. So why waste 2 hours talking to people that you know don't even care about the real definition of gaslighting? Why not use that 2 hours to talk to the people who have been severely gaslit, that have been abused with being gaslit, that are in therapy because they don't know how to trust themselves. They think it's something wrong with them. They think that being abused, molested, raped was their fault. They think that the abuser abused them because it's something that they did wrong, that they deserved it. Why not spend 2 hours talking to those people and validating those people's experience and teaching those people solutions and teaching those people that there's a way out, that there is a way for them to build mental toughness, that there is a way for them to reclaim their power? Why not spend the 2 hours on the podcast showing people the way out instead of telling them that the way that they're going is all wrong and it's stupid and you don't understand it? We're going to have to make it make sense. And this is where the conversations with mental health professionals and practitioners, your words matter. Because people are listening, and not only are they looking for help, they crave it, like they crave food. And what happens when you go on a podcast and you say, oh, gaslighting is normal? On top of that, gaslighting is stupid. I don't understand it. Not only Do you give the victim more of an opportunity to melt deeper into their victimhood? Because not only have they been invalidated, their whole reality has been invalidated by their gaslighting abuser. They just saw a therapist go on 19 Keys podcast and also invalidate their experience. Who can they trust? Who can they go to? Who can they now trust to help guide them out of that victim mentality into their warrior spirit? Because now they spiral deeper into the shame, deeper into the guilt, deeper into the abandonment of all of this was their fault, and they don't know what to believe. Because you had one opportunity to validate people's experience and remind them that there are people that use the terminology the wrong way, but there are way more people that have really been affected and abused. And I want to take this time to validate your experience and let you know that what happened to you was not okay. That your feelings are valid. And I invite you to embody and reclaim your power and step out of your victim mentality and really learn how to trust yourself and trust your reality. That's the conversation that's supposed to be had when you go on a platform with 19 keys, in my opinion. So while we're here, we're going to get the tools on how to reclaim your reality. Because out of that whole podcast, no tools were given. No solutions were given. It was opinions, judgments, what they don't like, what they think people should do, but there were no tools given. I do not understand. And again, this is not to bash the therapist because that's her way of doing things. But I don't understand how a therapist can go on a platform and down every single thing that's brought up. She doesn't like boundaries. She doesn't believe in boundaries. She doesn't like the terminology of healing. She doesn't believe in gaslighting. They also said that safe spaces are for the weak. I know everything that you don't like, but I don't know what I need to do to evolve out of this woundedness, these emotional injuries, and these traumas. They also said that the average person hasn't experienced trauma. This is just not true. It's not true. So it's odd that this is the rhetoric that's being used. Another thing that happened in this podcast is a lot of people gave pushback. And one thing I want to say before I get into the solutions and then I'm going to end it is the people gave so much pushback because when you are a person who's experienced abuse, when you have experienced being gaslit, when you have experienced people going out of their way to hurt and harm you, and it does feel traumatizing to you because trauma is relative and subjective. And then a person uses terminology like safe spaces are for weak people. Boundaries are stupid. Gaslighting is stupid. When a person uses that terminology and you've really experienced emotional trauma, the soul can't accept it. And when a person has had so many deep experiences that they are within their victim mentality, because everyone will be ordained to evolve out of their victim mentality. No one is subject to it. Everyone will have to evolve out of the archetype of the victim. Everyone. It's like universal law. We all will be like, you did this to me, you did this to me. We'll place blame. That's the victim mentality. Everyone will have to find their way out of that mentality. But when you go on a podcast and you use all of those terminologies, the victim within a person The inner child within a person has to fight for them. And the inner child within a person is fighting to be heard, to be validated, to be seen, to be acknowledged, and to be loved. And when you tell the inner child that is morphing into the victim because she just wants to be validated, oh, gaslighting is stupid. Gaslighting is normal. Figure out how to deal with it. Figure out how to have mental toughness. Safe spaces are for the weak. We need brave spaces. That's what Keys said. The child, the inner child, the victim that still hasn't been validated can't hear that. What does the victim do when someone challenges their reality? They put on armor. They protect themselves, just like they had to do when the gaslighter helped them distort their reality. They had to protect themselves. And how do people protect themselves? They either fight back, they either disagree, or they shut down and they don't say anything. They just allow the abuse to happen. And so all of this pushback that they're getting from their episode is because the victim has put on armor and they can't even receive what they're trying to say because they invalidated the parts of the person that is still trying to heal. You are a therapist. You can't do that. If you really are meeting people where they are, then your words have to meet them where they are as well. If you're a therapist and you're meeting people where they are, then that means you got to come down to the victim mentality with them and use the terminology that is necessary to help them take off their armor. That's a safe space. A safe space is when you know you don't have to put on armor because you are safe here. You're taken care of here. Now, you may not like what I say. You may not like how I say it. But I'm not going to say anything to invalidate your experience. Because that's not really subjective. If I say, oh, gaslighting is stupid, I don't know in what world that's not invalidating. When I say safe spaces are for the weak, I don't know in what world that's not invalidating. It doesn't invite a person to be open to a conversation, to be open to learning from you. It makes them feel like they have to protect themselves from you and anything that you dish out at them. A therapist, to some degree, is going to have some level of metaphysical principles. Meaning they're going to have to understand that healing is not just logical. You can't heal people with books and books alone. This is where healing, spirituality, and your own access to your emotional well-being comes in. And on that podcast, what I saw was two individuals who are intelligent, extremely intelligent, book smart, wise, streetwise. But when it comes to emotional wisdom, I didn't see it from neither one of them. You have a therapist that, in her own words, said that she goes by the book because the book is black and white. And when she had to be introduced to the science aspect, it was difficult for her. Meaning she threw out logic, she threw out statistics, she threw out things that were quotes from other practitioners, scientists, whoever it was she quoted, black and white. But the healing process requires a person to have emotional wisdom, spiritual integrity, and access to not just book knowledge, but the knowledge and the wisdom of the soul. And when you speak to a person's soul, even if the body wants to reject it, it's never going to leave their body. It's never going to leave their spirit. And they'll be thinking about what you said 5 years later because you spoke to the soul. It don't matter if they have the ability to accept it right then and there in the moment, but you spoke to their soul. You gave them the opportunity to be validated in your language. And that's why when I went on the podcast of Women of Tomorrow, I spoke about holy language, sacred language. A lot of people believe that just because it's true, that they need to say it. They think that because it's true, that when I say it, it needs to be accepted because it's true. I didn't lie. But what we know is it may be true, but if you don't have the vocabulary to say what's true in a way that a person can actually receive it, then you wasting your breath and you wasting their time. Is the intention just to say what's true? Or is the intention to actually touch people in their hearts and their souls? If the intention is really to help people heal, grow, and evolve, then that means you have to know how to use your words in a way that makes them feel safe enough to receive what you're saying so they can implement it, heal, grow, and evolve. Sacred language ain't just true. It's meaningful. It touches a person. It touches their soul. It makes them cry. It makes them feel something. And what we also know, and what they also spoke about on the podcast, is many truths can exist at the same time. You can be triggered by what I say, and I can say it also in a way that makes you feel it, to the point that you can't reject it even if you wanted to. But this is also where spiritual integrity comes into the conversation. Because if I'm just saying things because it's true, that kind of means I really don't care how you take it. I don't care how you feel about it. But if my intention is to actually touch people, to guide them through their healing process, then it does matter how you take it. It does matter how it penetrates the person. That's an intentionality. On to the solutions. When a person gaslights you, the intention is to distort your reality, make you believe what happened is not true. And the only time a person can do that is when you aren't confident in your own intuitive power. I just want to read over my notes to make sure I don't miss anything when I go through the solutions. Okay, the way that you can evolve out of, I guess, the abuse of being gaslit is to start really building a relationship with your intuition. And this is how you have mental toughness. This is how you embody your power. This is how you reclaim your power. And not just from a person who is gaslighting you, but being able to own your reality, being able to own your experiences and own what's happened to you. And so a lot of times in childhood, we don't really have the ability to work with our intuition because things are decided for us. You don't get to decide what kind of clothes you want to wear. You don't get to decide your name. You don't get to decide your religion. You don't get to decide what you believe in. All of these things are taken from us. We don't get to use our intuitive power to really feel into what resonates with our spirit. And when we don't do that, we don't get to have autonomy over our reality or even trust our reality because someone has chosen for us and dictated it for us since we were kids. So what can help you with just gaining your power back in your decision making first is embodying that intuitive compass. And you learn to trust yourself when you keep your word to yourself and you do what you said you were going to do. And that looks like if you said you were going to start Monday, then you start Monday. If you said you were going to clean your house once a week, then you practice cleaning your house once a week, because this builds up the spiritual stamina and the trust within the body. A lot of times, specifically with, say, healing, say you have a cancer that comes up and you need the body to heal. Well, the body's going to pay attention to all the times that you lied. You said you were going to start eating healthy on Monday, but you didn't. You said you were going to leave this relationship, but you didn't. You made promises. God, if you get me out of this again, I'll never do it again. But you did it again. The body is recording all of these times where you went back on your word, you dishonored yourself, and you betrayed yourself. The body is keeping that score and remembering. And so when something traumatic happens, like getting cancer or a disease, and you need the body to heal itself, and you tell the body, I can heal this, I can do this. The body's like, can we? I don't really trust your word. I don't really trust that you love me. I don't really trust that you believe in me. I don't really trust that you have the faith that I can heal you. And this is just based on the decisions that we make or don't make, the words that we keep to ourselves or we don't keep to ourselves. When you start to keep your word, you start to build trust within the body. And then when it's time for you to make a decision, you can kind of trust your intuition because you've built a trustful foundation in the body. I keep my word to myself. So if I make a decision, I can trust that I'm going to be okay because I trust myself. I can trust my decision making, and then I can trust my intuition. I can trust when my body sways me one way. I can trust when my body says, that's not for me. Because I'm building a relationship with it now. And when you start building this relationship, small ways, when somebody tries to question your reality, you've built up enough spiritual and intuitive stamina because that intuitive muscle is like, that nigga lying. That don't resonate. That's not right. Don't go with them. Don't get in that car. Don't answer the phone. Don't get back in that relationship. Don't take that job. Don't let this person in your house. Don't give this person your phone number. You're going to really start to be able to hear your intuitive compass because you've created a relationship with yourself to where the body trusts you, the mind trusts you, your spirit trusts you, your cells and your DNA trust you. And so when somebody says, I never said that to you, that intuition is going to come online and say, they said it. And not only did they say it, they meant it. Whereas if you don't have a relationship with your intuition and a person says, oh, I never meant to hurt you. It wasn't my intention to hurt you. And then you're going to be confused like, dang, should I stay in this relationship? It felt like they meant to hurt me, but they say they didn't. Should I believe them? You won't know what to do. You won't even know what to believe. But when you have a relationship with your body, you have a relationship with your intuition, you have a relationship with your word, the second they say, it was never my intention to hurt you, I'm so sorry, your spirit is going to come online and say, they're lying. They meant what they said. They meant to cause harm. They meant to hurt you. They knew that when they said that, it would inflict this type of emotional injury and pain. They did it on purpose. They intentionally went out of their way to do this. And this is not a safe person. It's time for you to back away. It's time for you to stay away. It's time for you to pivot and move in a different direction. Your body will give you all of that information. Your body will tell you all of that. So when a person tries to gaslight you and make you believe certain things didn't happen, your intuition is going to say, in this now. You cannot move forward, period. That's how you make sure you aren't gaslit. You build a relationship with yourself. You practice keeping your word to yourself. Even if it's like, I say I'm gonna wash the dishes every night before bed because I like to wake up in a clean environment. At this point, it ain't even really about the clean environment. It's about keeping your word to yourself. Imagine if you were in a relationship with somebody and they were like, I'm gonna pick you up every Friday at 5 o'clock and we're gonna go out. And every Friday at 5 o'clock, they know where to be found. And they make the promise every week, every week, every week. And at some point, you're going to be like, you don't keep your word. And so do you just continue a relationship with somebody that doesn't keep their word? No. It morphs into, I don't trust you. Because if you can't keep your word, how can I trust you? What will you lie about? What will you be dishonest about? Am I safe with you? I can't really trust if you'll be honest in ways that I need you to be honest. So if you will damn near rebuke a person because they're untrustworthy, imagine what's happening with your body, mind, spirit, and intuition when you're untrustworthy. Everything detaches. The heart detaches from the body. The intuition detaches from the body. The spirit detaches from the body. The mind detaches from the body. And now you're a scattered person because you can't tell which part of your reality is real because there's no wholeness to it. Everything is now fragmented. And that's why you have to call your mom, your uncle, your aunts, your cousins, your friends. Because you're trying to help people, you're trying to have people help you put all the pieces back together. And they can't. You want them to give you advice and guide you and tell you on what to do so you can trust and have faith in your reality. And they can't do that. You have to put all of these pieces back together by building that relationship with yourself, by apologizing to yourself for all the times that you said yes when you really wanted to say no. All the times you dishonored your word. You betrayed your word. You didn't do what you said you were going to do. The body deserves an apology to restore and come back to home and to be whole and no longer fragmented. And in my book, if you're interested, in my book, there's a whole ceremony on how you repair your relationship with self so you can embody your intuitive power. It's at the back of the book. If you already had a book, it's at the back. So there's a process to learning how to empower your reality, how to reclaim your power so you can stand firm in your reality. When a person has not been taught how to do, who has taught us how to do this? Nobody. Nobody has taught us how to do this. Nobody speaks about the intuitive compass. Nobody speaks about repairing your relationship with your intuition so you can walk around as a whole person and not a fragmented being. So if a person doesn't know how to repair their relationship with their intuitive spirit, how are we telling them that it's stupid to be gaslit? It's not stupid. They aren't fragile. They aren't weak-minded. They haven't been taught how to have a proper relationship with themselves to embody and reclaim their power so they can stand in their intuitive power. And then when you can do that, you can stand up to people outside of you. Because you've built such a rapport with yourself, you also have built a strength within yourself. You've built a power within yourself, and now your posture changes. And when a person tries to distort the reality that you know is true, you don't stand for it, because if I don't betray myself, ain't nobody outside of me gonna betray myself. If I don't dishonor myself, nobody outside of me is gonna dishonor myself. There's a different posture that comes when you know better. And gaslighting isn't stupid. People just don't know how to heal yet. And the intention is to teach them the proper way to heal, not make them feel stupid because they don't have the tools just yet. The intention is to teach people how to become their own therapist and how to become their own healer. Okay. I feel like that is all, okay? I said what I said. And I'm going to continue these conversations. I'm going to break down that whole interview because it's necessary. And for the people that interview worked for, they got what they need. For the people that were unsettled by the interview, then it's necessary to provide a balanced outlook so they can feel validated on their journey. Everybody wants to be validated. Jesus needed to be validated. Even Buddha put his hand on the ground and asked for spirit to validate him. My dog, when she goes outside and she sees a person walking down the street, she looks at me because she's excited for me to tell her that she can bark at them in the gate. She's looking for my validation. She's looking for me to say, good job. Thank you for protecting our house. So if a dog is seeking validation, then it's normal for the average person to seek validation, to be seen, to be witnessed, to be acknowledged, to be heard in ways that we probably have never been when we were younger. As practitioners, that is our job. So I don't know what went wrong on this podcast, but the intention that I will be holding up in all of the other segments to come, and this will be added to YouTube, is to provide the other part of that conversation that I don't feel like happened.
My nigga, everything is love, but that on anything I love. Yeah.
Peace, beloved.